to Maxed Out Man, helping you become the man you were made to be.
Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Maxed Out Man podcast. We're already having a good time here today. I'm going to be here with my good friend Bradley Clark. Before we get started, I want to remind you to go to maxoutman.com. And we have some serious stuff going on right now. We've got all kinds of courses, challenges. We're doing some coaching. We've got some case studies going. So check us out on maxoutman.com. Follow, obviously, the podcast. Don't forget to rate and review. Hey, I'm going to give some background here on Bradley, and this is just a snippet of how awesome he is. But let me give this information, and then I'll let him fill in the gaps. Bradley's an executive producer and content creator at White Husky Films, where captivating and inspiring content is crafted across diverse platforms. With over 2 decades of experience in recruiting. In the recruiting realm, Bradley has adeptly guided countless professionals towards their dream career paths, while fostering enduring client relationships. So he does some awesome executive high-level recruiting. He was honored with Christian Gospel Album of the Year in 2014, I think you said, and is also a 7-time nominee for songwriting and producing, which is amazing also. Passionate about empowering others, Bradley channels his insights and wisdom into Work Your Career Wednesday, which is a podcast dedicated to unpacking career development, personal growth, and industry trends. And side note, evidently it helps you when you go to the ER and need to circumvent the security and line queuing to be a very popular podcaster in your local area and otherwise. So, hey, Bradley, man, I really appreciate you joining me. We have become fast, close friends. We have a lot in common and just have a real great connection. So I'm super excited to come here. You know, have you come here with Maxed Out Man. We do, we're like educate, inspire, entertain. And I think all these, I think we'll hit all 3 of these today. We'll probably have to make sure we don't do a Rogan 3-hour podcast while we're at it. But hey, I really appreciate you being here. And hey, fill in the gaps on what I gave. I mean, that's just a snippet of the awesomeness that you are. I mean, you're a musician, songwriter, producer. You have great hair. I just got my haircut today. My hair was a little bit higher before the podcast. I had to tone it down a little bit.
Why? You should have let it go.
Yours is looking good. I don't quite have that length yet. I'm growing mine out, but well,
you can't grow it out if you keep cutting it. You got,
Well, now here's the deal. I had a podcast with a guy that's a GQ worldwide award-winning barber, right? And so he came on, he's like, dude, why do you have the same haircut every guy your age has? Which is short on top, shorter on the sides, called me out. And so I started growing my hair out. Like my hair grows fast. So like I grew it, it'll grow an inch in 2 months, 1.5 inches. And so I've been growing it out. So it's substantially longer than it was. So, but so we'll see. I'll let it keep growing a little bit. And I don't know that I can, I don't know I can pull off the height that you can, honestly.
Yes, you can. I love it because it was good. Great. Your face is great with it. And you could do my thing is, man, I have had like some version of a pompadour for years.
Yeah.
I'm an Elvis guy. Like this thing, the TCB, that was made by Elvis's personal jeweler.
Nice.
Like Lowell Hayes. You know what I mean? I love Elvis. Family connections with people in his band and stuff. But for a while, I was doing the Caesar. Like, you know what I mean? Like the short and then the little dip in the front. I was doing that for a while, like early 2000s and stuff like that.
I had that.
Right. And then I just was like, you know what? That's cool. It was nice on a hot day. But I'm doing my thing. I had never like gotten a fade. You know what I mean? Like I always wanted a fade, right? I just never got one. And I'm like, man, I'm grown. I'm an adult now, man. I'm gonna do. And so I started doing the fades. And my barber, let me tell you right now, I just want to shout her out. Her name's Jasmine Medell. She's got a shop called Gold Medell. See that?
Nice.
Gold Medell barbershop in Houston. Talk about an amazing barber. I'm going to tell you right now, she's worth every penny. She's not just a barber. She's a therapist. I mean, really, you know what I mean? And I just love her to death, but she's been taking care of me for years. I have to go back to her. I've been a little busy, We've had, I don't
Yeah.
know, busy doing a show and doing this and doing that. But yeah, man, fill in the blanks. So so we got the show Work Your Career Wednesday, which you have been on. And I got to tell you, that was an amazing show. Whenever YouTube throttles you down for, something about talk, you know what I mean? And we didn't even talk, we was talking about being a man, you know what I mean? And so that was great. So we started the show in 2023. We can go into how I started it, but I was my mom was a gospel singer, my dad was an evangelist, and so I was the preacher's kid, right? But music was always around our family. Just you name it, right? We in California, right in a little town next to Berkeley, California, across the pond from San Francisco, we would have like jam sessions, right? And the way we'd have my grandparents' house, we have my aunt's house. And so the way it would work is we would be singing Christian gospel or really just gospel, like country gospel. And my grandfather was an amazing songwriter. I mean, amazing. My dad was an incredible guitar player. I mean, he played Chet Atkins style on a Gretsch, Country Gentleman.
Yeah.
And so we would have these jam sessions. We'd have these hippies, walking by in their Birkenstocks, and they would just stand there and listen. They wouldn't come up, but they would stand there and listen. And I remember one time I went down there and I was like, "Hey, how you guys doing?" Being the, social butterfly I was. And they said, "Oh, hi." I said, "That is just great roots music. That is roots." I'm like, "Look, you obviously don't know where we're from."
Well, I mean, if there's anywhere in the United States that you think gospel, it's Berkeley and San Francisco, right? Like that's that's not exactly the birthplace of gospel.
It's not the breadbasket of country gospel music, but you know what I mean. But all my family are from going from Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia. So my grandparents were from West Virginia, in a little town called Grafton. And if you kind of like get a feel of the influences from there, talk about Bill Withers, West Virginia native, and his really, if you think about it, that was country. No matter how you slice it, it was country. Just with a little bit different twist to it. But anyway, yeah. So music was always a part of my life, man, and the ministry was too. There's my family, a lot of them are in the ministry, but we're diverse too. Hair stylists and bankers and I call her my cousin niece, Kristen. Because man, I grew up.
That's nothing like Uncle. That's not like Uncle Dad, is it? That's
no.
No, you did say West Virginia. So,
to the heart. No, man, no. Well, see, when I was growing up, my aunt's cousins, right? But they were so much older than me. They were always Aunt Debbie, Aunt Pam.
Yeah,
and I was confused when I was a kid. I'm like, wait a minute. Because when you're in school, they kind of teach you how to do the
third cousin, once removed, that whole all thing. That stuff. Yeah,
and I'm like, wait a minute, my Aunt Debbie and Aunt Pam, those are my cousins. That don't make sense. So I said, when one of them has kids, those kids will be as confused as I was. And so so I'm Uncle Brad, right? But she's the VP of sales and marketing for Jersey Mike's. I just had her on the show. She's got 20 stores that she owns. Her husband and then she has a group of owners. And she's doing great. I mean, there's so much diversity in what we do, but really all of us are rooted in the ministry. And so, I did my thing. I was the quintessential preacher's kid. So, awful angry, especially when my parents got divorced, and you know what I mean? Like it was a thing. So I rebelled, but my mom, always wanted me to go into she saw me in my first rock band, and we were killing it, and she couldn't get behind it because it wasn't, it wasn't the ministry. Well, anyway, fast forward, I got married, I got divorced, did very well in the business world. I was introduced to recruiting. I did great there. And but I was still trying to play music. You know what I mean? I was still trying to do something with it. And I'm just the kind of guy that I can't do things for a hobby. Like I don't have hobbies. I feel like if I'm not doing something that's going to improve me or help improve someone else or something like that, you know what I mean? Like I can't do hobbies. I wish I could, but I can't. I guess, well, I collect art and kind of, and like presidential stuff, like the Kennedy stuff back there, you know, that's an eye cart from World War I, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's like, I just don't do hobbies. So it was hard for me to kind of go from the business world and still stay in music, but I did as much as I could, had a lot of success there, played with some of the greatest musicians ever. But it was still one of those things where, you know, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. But then when the show ended, you know, that's why a lot of these guys keep partying. They keep doing destructive things because you want that thing to stay. You want that adrenaline to stay. You want you know what I mean? And so I did a lot of things, and I ended up, I had life-changing money and, you know, earned it in the business world and different things and different investments I had, and I ended up losing it all. And so by the time I'm 30, I had been to several mountaintops, and boy, I was in a valley. And so at that point, you know, my family, you know, got behind me, and I ended up doing a Christian discipleship program. And when I say that, that means you don't have any money and you lost all your insurance, and you can't go to the ones that I went to. You know what I mean? Like I went to some pretty posh, you know, I went to a rehab one time as a vacation. I'm telling you. So,
wow,
so
that makes you official Hollywood, right? That's
brother. That is a fact. I really did. And so anyway, around that time, I'd always felt a call in my life. I was, as far as like the partying I did, well, I never did it with people. Like really, like if there was I didn't want that image. I didn't want anybody to ever say they saw me do X, Y, Z. But then again, like there were very few people that knew about it, but that's why they couldn't understand why, you know, it's like, why are you making such weird decisions? Like, why are you giving money away to this? Why are, you know what I'm saying? Like, why are you wasting your money and your time and this and that? And, it's just so weird to talk about it because it was a lifetime ago, and it just feels like I'm telling somebody else's story. But you know, it just
well, I mean, at the end of the day,
removed.
it kind of is, right? Like it's, if you've changed, you are telling someone else's story because it's a different version of yourself, right?
Such a good point, dude. Yeah, absolutely. So around 31, I'm in this program, and I'm like, you know what? I want to actually learn what I've believed for so long. You know what I mean? The people that I did, you know, drink with or whatever, we would always talk about God. Like, I'm sure, you know, if you're trying to do something bad and you got a guy that is always talking about Jesus all the time, I'm sure that can get annoying. You know what I mean? Like, like we're not in church. I'm like, yeah, but you know, if you look around, God, and can you believe that God did this for us and all that? And so I decided I really wanted to hone in and get to know the Lord, right? And so I did that program successfully, and I ended up going to seminary. And while I was in seminary, now I was in the music business for a long time. Like if I wasn't performing, I was writing, but I was investing in different artists, in different like production studios and stuff like that, you know. And it got out. It got out that I did that. And I didn't want anything to do with the music business. In fact, I hate the music business. If there's one thing about my life that I can say, the music business for me is akin to like getting a root canal on every tooth. Like I'm good. I can't stand it. But it got out that, I played with so-and-so and blah, blah, blah. And I was in this this class with a Kenyan pastor. His name was Pastor Martin Mwangi. He pastors a church in Sacramento called House of Glory. And he comes up to me one day out of the blue and he goes, blood. It was always blood, right? It was blood. He goes, blood. You have to come to my church. You have to come. And I said, well, I would love to. He says, no, you do not understand. You have to come to my church. You will speak and you will play. And I'm like, I mean, are we being prophetic here? Like what's happening, right now? And he says, no, we have a watch night. And for people who don't know what a watch night is, people come to the church, and you pray and you worship and there's sermons and stuff like that all night. You're not locked in the church, but it's like an all night thing. And then you stop when you stop. And they were doing it for 2 nights. And so I'd spoken before, but I'd never done a sermon. I mean, I was the kid that would listen to my dad practice his sermons, and I would be the little kid, because as an evangelist, you have 2 or 3,
Right?
and you know what I mean. And when you're selling a book, you know what I mean. And he is doing all that. So, but that was the extent of it. And as far as gospel music goes, it would be kind of like Elvis would do, like you'd play with your friends, and I would play, yeah, man, I grew up on this, I thank God for the lighthouse, what I mean? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I'll take it. And I put together this little band. My drummer was a guy by the name of Pastor Jose Rodriguez, and he was associate pastor at Samuel Rodriguez. If you guys don't know who that is, he's pastor of New Season Christian Worship Center. He's got a couple shows on TBN, but he's also working with an old classmate of mine, Devon Franklin, and he's produced a few movies. So it's really kind of interesting how it all kind of happens. But he was going to that church, and I wasn't married to Erica then. She was singing backgrounds, and I had a guy named Chris Mitchell. He was playing bass, and I was playing guitar. And so I call my mom, and she brings everybody, right? And I'm like, this is my first sermon. You know what I mean? Like, I'm speaking for the first time. Oh my gosh. And I called a friend of mine and I said, I didn't know this, but I think I need an armor bearer. Like, he goes, all right, man, I'll come. I said, I just need you to give me my Bible. Like, I guess that's what everybody does, right? Like, that's, so she brings my stepdad, who's like a peripheral Catholic, at best, my mom, my aunt Joanne, Uncle Mike, and, a couple of people. And I do my first sermon, and I'm like this, I'm looking down the whole time. I'm looking down, right? I'm like, oh yes. And then God said, da-da-da. And when we talk about, whatever it was, I don't even remember what I spoke on. And so then when it was over, we did our set, I spoke, and then it was on to the next. And then I went back, and my dad died when I was 14, Paul Clark. And I'm sorry, Dr. Paul Clark. I wouldn't want to get that wrong. Sorry. But he died when I was 14, and he, when you get to a certain age as a man, your dad gives your blessing, his blessing. I never got that. Because he was, I always knew he loved me, but I never got his blessing, like a blessing, like a father gives a son, and in the AG tradition, like that's a big deal, Assemblies of God. And so, as you know, right. And so it's a big deal. And so I go back, and now my stepdad, Vince, he was great. And he saw me through a lot of the turmoil that I went through. He saw the whole shebang. And he was a bass player. He played with a whole bunch of jazz bands, played with Santana for a while, but he quit music and he went to be, he was a carpenter, and he was a fantastic carpenter. Like, the things that guy could do was amazing. And I go back and I talk to him. I said, well, what'd you think? And my mom was, oh, I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't look up. So I knew she was critiquing that. But Vince looked at me and he grabbed my hand. And I remember I was sitting in the row in back of him. And he goes full circle and he grabs my hand. He had strong hands. He was a little guy, but he was strong hands, Grabs my hand and he said, Brad, I'm so proud of you. I am so thankful that you're doing what you're doing. And I want to tell you, now I've never expressed this to anybody. He said, Bradley, I give you my blessing as my son. I give you my blessing as my son. I love what you're doing. Keep doing it. I will always be there.
Wow.
You have my blessing. He said, I'm not sure where you and Erica are right now, but you have my blessing for her as well. More than happy to talk to her father.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
So I told you Jose, my drummer, was associate pastor with Samuel Rodriguez, right? I went up to Pastor Jose and I said, I just got this feeling. I said, I think my dad, he's going to give his heart to the Lord tonight. He said, really? I said, yeah. He goes, well, go lead him. And I said, man, I'm not qualified to do that. I'm not qualified. I said, but you are. And Jose, he said, man, I think you should do it. I said, respectfully, please do it. I think this is the time. Kevin, he gave his heart to the Lord that night.
Nice. 3
months later, he was with him.
Oh, wow.
He was in a car accident, a fatal car accident. And, but just the timing of everything was incredible. Mom's a wreck. She can't talk to anybody, none of the insurance people, and there's a whole thing. Like if you make the trucks, the wheel of the trucks, the tire came off and made a divot in the road. So you're charged for that divot. You know what I mean? So I had to deal with everything. I had to deal with all of that. And the very first call was to a girl at Geico. And I'm talking to her and she just starts sobbing. And I'm like, honey, what's the matter? And I said, and she goes, well, it's just so sad. I said, I know. And I didn't tell her really. I just told her the facts of what happened. None of the other stuff, because why would I go into that?
Well, it's not like you bring that up to every customer service agent.
Right. Exactly. And so she says, I said, let me ask you this. I said, forgive me, but, do you go to church? That's my kind of thing to ask. Like, you know what I mean? And she goes, well, I was, but I haven't been in a long time. And I said, well, don't worry about where Vince is. I know where he's at. And I said, well, what's been going on with you? And she starts telling me different things. And I said, you know what? Are you ready to rededicate your life? And we're going to do it on this phone call. Vince brought that girl to the Lord. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've told this story to, I don't know, tens of thousands of people. And even more are going to hear it now. He's brought more people to God than he could ever have done in life.
That's pretty awesome.
And what it sparked for me, and it was funny because, now I got the bug again to do music and to play music and, maybe I could actually do something with this. And I remember saying after that phone call, I said, if Vince's story brings one person to the Lord, I'm okay. And it was almost like a shot of lightning, just like, bam, it hit me upside my face really hard. I actually moved. Like I felt something physical, like hit me upside the head. And it said, no, that is not what I called you to do. You will do what I'm going to tell you to do. And so then I ended up, I finished school, and I put together an amazing group, and I we had a television appearance and we didn't know we didn't have a name. You know what I mean? It was my Aunt Debbie's television show, and she brought us on. And I said, I don't know, call us Bradley Clark Band. And I don't know if my bandmates really love that, but that's what it ended up being. And so we ended up putting out a couple singles, ended up putting an album out, made some pretty good deals, and ended up winning 2014 Christian Gospel Album of the Year. And then I've worked with other artists, including my own stuff. I'm a 7-time nominee for producing and songwriting. And all of those years playing rock and roll, it's kind of like, well, again, with Elvis, he won 3 Grammys, all for gospel music.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, in that, for all of the years of recruiting and making money doing that. And then, and we moved to Houston, and I ended up going back into the recruiting industry. And, that's sort of where Work Your Career Wednesday came about. I was working with an AI company. They dissolved recruiting after a very successful stint with them worldwide. Going into 2023, tech was getting kicked in the teeth, and so recruiting's first thing to go. They didn't need it. They didn't need to do that.
I mean, they have AI. They have AI to do it.
Of course, you know what I mean. But I started a show called Transcend Your Career Thursday, and when I left, I was a little salty, and so I said, you know what, I'm going to take my show. You can have that one, but I'm going to start Work Your Career Wednesday, and so that's where that show spawned out of. But at the end of the day, filling in the blanks, you asked for it. So there's a reason behind all of it, and the thing is that when I decided, because God can call you to do something, but you have to decide if you're going to do it. And with the music, I feel like I was sat down. It became more, my whole thing was, I'll do music, especially, when I went back into it, but it's God-centered, obviously. But then I found out that it's not. Like in the business is the business, and it will always be the business. So that's where a strong spiritual foundation going into anything and I found that out quick. And then when I went back into the corporate world, after the music became more about me and less about him, it was kind of like the opposite of what John said. You know what I mean? And I thought that's what I needed to do. That wasn't correct. And then, going back into the corporate world, it's funny. We've lived in such a day and age where, your faith is something that you don't share or you don't this. And I'm just like, look, here's the deal. This is me. If you don't like it, that's cool. I'm never going to be disrespectful, but this is what changed my life. It changed my heart. And if you're interested as to know why I'm telling you that you're awesome every day, because I truly believe that you're awesome, because you're formed and you were knit in your mother's womb to do something extraordinary, then I'm going to tell you, and here's why. But, I'm never on my soapbox, but if I don't keep God in the center of what I'm doing, then it becomes too much about me. And that's what Work Your Career Wednesday has been focused on, is I'll talk to anybody and everybody. The one constant in all of them, and we're talking about Tony Busby, former NFL stars. I've had a lot of sports people, professional athletes, people that have worked in the front office. All of them have a strong spiritual foundation. So if you're trying to be successful, you need to do what successful people do. And the thing is, if you don't have a strong spiritual foundation, I don't care what you do, it's going to end up not going well.
Well, it's like having a compass missing the needle, right? And
1,000%.
It's hard to know what direction you're going if you don't really have that true north. And a buddy of mine runs actually a ministry for men called True North Man, and it's something that he really talks a lot about. But not having that, And it is interesting. I've learned more and more people are less afraid to talk about that. And I mean, it's kind of crazy because Greg Laurie has been talking about this segment that Joe Rogan did. And I can't remember who the guest was, but Joe Rogan was talking about God and Jesus and the need for those things. And
so we need Jesus.
Yeah. And Joe's not a Christian. Like he's a spiritual guy, clearly.
He's searching.
But his spirituality leans into a little bit into the little green men territory and in a lot of ways.
I mean, you got to start somewhere.
But I think that he's a great example of being able to talk about things because even if you, and again, on this podcast, I've had a great opportunity to talk with people that are complete opposite end of the spectrum as me.
Yeah.
But still have a great conversation and like, I'm not upset about their position or their belief system and they're not upset about mine. And I think it's great to be able to talk about it.
Kevin, you know what's funny though? And I'm so glad we're talking about this. So, I was on TikTok or Instagram or something like that. And I've seen American Idol. There's this kid on there. What is his name? Tristan something. And, he's up there and his song that he sang to get, I don't watch the show, but that was the thing. He needed to go through to the next round. Right.
Right.
And he sings an original song that he wrote with, somebody that goes to his church. And it's like, look, you better get wrapped up in Jesus. Like he was unabashed. And it's like, we come from a generation where a lot of that is, I mean, if it doesn't involve crystals and beads and, I really want to get in touch with the universe, if it doesn't involve that. I mean, even when I was playing rock and roll, I took the old school entertainer position where I don't want to alienate half of my audience. So I'll keep those things to myself. If you ask me about it, I'll be honest. But, I guess I'm still that way a little bit. You know what I mean? Because again, I get just like you get presented opportunities to share the gospel. It's not that you're out there, proselytizing. It just happens. I don't know how it happens, but it just does. But there was always that block. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it was always that thing where, you don't want to talk about politics or religion. And I think we're in a situation now where, and you tell me what you think, we're looking at people so tired of lies that they'll swallow a half truth and say it's tasty. You know what I'm saying? Like we're there. So when you feel, and these podcasts, when you're talking to people and they're real, they're authentic, and you don't have to be bombastic or say a bunch of cuss words or, I'm going against the grain and I'm real. It's just you're who you are. Oh my gosh, that resonates so much. And if who you are is rooted in your faith, my goodness, it says that you will know them by their fruits. We always look at that as we'll know them by their fruits. We'll know them by their bank account. We'll know them by their influence. We'll know them by their XYZ. But hold the phone. That's great. And that's a byproduct of hard work. And that's a byproduct of walking out what you do. But hold the phone. Some of that fruit is, are you denying the very presence of what got you there? Are you going to deny someone your story? Are you going to deny the essence of who you are for the sake of not offending people? I heard of a church the other day that they don't want to do resurrection or say the blood of Jesus for the unchurched. I've been in that situation. That's a good story if you want me to tell it. But I've been in that situation, and I'm telling you, it never works. Being authentic, what Marcus talks about was podcast, authenticity is key. Yeah. And we have to get that. People are starving for it. Like they found a well in the desert. And then all of a sudden they feel, you know what? I can be authentic and I can be real. And you know what? I can be authentic enough to say, I need God in my life. This billionaire is talking about this and that and the other thing. What's the common denominator with me?
Mm.
The Lord.
Yeah. And then, with this podcast in particular, like, I'm unabashedly, I talk about my faith all the time, but this is not a Christian podcast. Like, I'm not
at all.
If people are here, men, I want people to learn, be inspired and educated and all that. And I want to show people the things about my life and have great conversations with people. And, a central component of my life is my faith, obviously.
That's right.
And so I talk about it, but I don't my assumption is that the people that will resonate and listen to this are not offended by that. They may not share that same faith, which is, that's at the end of the day, that's the choice, right? Like,
my thing is if they're offended, that's got nothing to do with me. You need to ask yourself why you're offended.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my life.
Yeah.
If you want me to talk about my life and the struggles that I've overcome and how I've done it, fantastic. That's the way I did it.
Yeah.
And if you're offended by how I did it, miss me. You ain't paying my bills.
That's right. Hey, I do want to ask you a couple things. I'm curious. Just this is for my own curiosity. But so you were performing effectively because you're up singing, playing music at this event, and then. So you're a performer in that case, and I assume you didn't do that with your head down. But then when you went to go speak, your head down, and you had no confidence. I'm curious about that because I think as men, we a lot of time, and I'm going to try to wrap this into this as well. But
come on,
I think as men, we a lot of times have those kind of like we're really good at this thing, but we suck at this thing. Like we aren't able to bridge those two scenarios very well, and it kind of spoke to me a little bit in the way you were describing that, because one of the things we talk a lot about, I've done worship. I used to lead worship. I played guitar in worship in the worship band and have actually led worship by myself for like 5 or 6 months at a small church. But there's this dichotomy where one of the hardest things that I think people that lead worship do that are natural performers, which I'm not actually a natural performer, but they struggle to not perform. Right? Like when you're leading those gospel songs, it actually is a bit of a struggle to lead people without performing for people. And so all that to say, I'm curious about just walk me through some of that mentality and your fears and your self-consciousness and all that.
So that night, again, this is my first sermon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had all sorts of things going on in my head, remembering, even a little kid, remembering my dad speak and the way he did it. And, he was a teacher. He was an author. He was an academic as much as he was a preacher. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he did it a little differently than I do, you know what I mean? But with I had all sorts of things going on in my head, and I felt honored that I was behind that desk. I was behind that sacred desk, but I was super nervous too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh! And one of the speakers that was after me was this. I mean, he had a robe on, he had the thing, he had a beautiful gold chain with the cross. Oh man, it was so cool. And I'm like, whoa, this dude is like hardcore. Who am I? It was like that whole thing again. Like, who am I to do this? Like I know what I can do behind a guitar, but what am I going to say? And the second night was the night I wish everyone would have come, because the second night was awesome. But as far as that went, I grew out of that. I grew out of sort of the shyness, and for me, this is another thing that people have a misconception about is that, it's not a performance for me. But as far as performing goes, again, am I not going to be who I am because someone's going to think I'm performing? Or am I going to use the talents that God gave me the way he gave them to me?
Yeah.
And be me, And if people think that that's a performance, because I had a struggle with that, too. I didn't want people to think it was a show, Like I would tell my mom when I would get booked around the country, I'd say, oh yeah, man, I was still using,
I got a gig.
Music vernacular. And I'm like, yeah, I got a gig in St. Louis. And then, and then I'm going to do the TV show. And then I'm going to do, and she's like, it's not a gig. It's not a show. Okay. It's a service. I'm like, oh yeah, I know, so I had
we're not allowed to use that. We have to use what? Experience. We like all these
all
the modern churches have changed the vernacular again, right?
Oh, I know.
I can't say church service anymore.
I tell you what, I will tell you that story before this show is over because it is awesome. But yeah, so I had to come to the realization that, like, for example, my wife, Erica, she's an incredible worship leader. The way she put together a worship set, she's led worship all over the world, literally, South Africa, Greece, you name it. Like her and her band would sit around and go, and they say, what's God telling you today? Like, what did you experience this week? What's God showing you this week? And they would formulate their set based on that. And they were phenomenal musicians, right? So they were able to do that. I wouldn't call myself a phenomenal musician. I can get by, and there's a few people that like it. But you
only need 3 chords when you're talking about Christian music anyway.
Maybe
throw in a fourth.
The other thing.
You throw in a fourth with B minor and you're all set.
Right, and I know. Oh yes, and we're gonna do the prayer. Somebody get on the keyboard because we gotta have the pad.
Yeah, there you go. Right, yeah.
Put the smoke in there.
Yeah,
and the Lord is speaking to your heart today.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when somebody would and starting to experience all that, and if someone would have the audacity to come up to me and tell me that my set was a performance, after that, miss me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I had to come to the realization that, I perform in a way that God lets me.
Yeah.
It's lively. I am everywhere. Like if it's somewhere where Bradley Clark Band was booked somewhere, it wasn't that I was doing that because I was trying to put on a show. I was doing that because, man, I could feel it. I could feel the anointing. I could feel that God was doing something. I could feel it, and the room could feel it. It was like almost like there were sometimes, Kevin, where it was like a oil bubble went,
yeah,
and it just, so I don't worry about that. I think that I think it's a valid concern because people don't want to be fooled anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they don't want to be fooled. They don't want they just don't want their heart broken again. And so when they're looking at the musician and even as the musician, and you're looking at that, look, I was sat down because at one point I just wasn't living right. And so I couldn't get up on that platform, not a stage. The platform has become a stage in a lot of modern churches. Okay. But I couldn't get on the platform and do the things that I was doing in my personal life. I always said that I never wanted to be the reason someone relapsed or someone backslid. I don't want to be that reason. I don't want to be the reason somebody says, you know what? I was really into trying to be a Christian, but your example, who are you to be telling me and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sat down by a man. I literally was sat down by God. And I had to think about that. And beyond all of the accolade, beyond all of the, the Album of the Year award was a big deal for me because of all the struggle. I mean, I was nominated for Song of the Year and Group of the Year, but I wanted Album of the Year. It was enough to be nominated, but I wanted Album of the Year, and we got it. But, beyond all that, all those awards and all that stuff told me was that our music was resonating with people.
Right.
And so I can't, if I go on the platform and I don't perform the way God's leading me to perform, then I'm being inauthentic.
Mm-hmm.
Just the same way, if someone goes on stage and goes on a platform, goes on stage, wherever they are, and they have to dial it back, or I'm sorry, they have to force it.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, everybody clap. Let's go. Okay. Hey, Sister Judy, you ain't clapping. Okay. Come on now. Okay. Well, and we're so worried about the sound and my in-ears and the lyrics and the this and all the technical stuff. But we're not worried about what am I singing?
Yeah.
What's the anointing? And somebody feels like they have to push it. That's just as bad as me having to dial it back.
Yeah.
It's inauthentic.
Yeah.
So that's how I got over that, because I did have that fear. But that's how I got over it. It's like, you know what? The Lord gave me a gift, and I'm going to use it to the best of my ability. If I don't, then I'm not being real.
Yeah.
And then I actually am a phony.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I want to ask you too about this blessing thing. Like I'm not Assemblies of God or anything like that. So this was not something, and I never, my dad and I still have a good relationship. My parents divorced when I was 6, and he remarried and all that long, huge story in my background. But it's like watching an episode of Cops, if anybody,
Oh my gosh.
So
I want to talk about that.
That's kind of my background. But I'm interested, like, as dads, or a lot of dads that are listening to the show.
I have to get my I'm about to lose my power.
He's getting his laptop charger.
I'm getting my laptop charger. I am so sorry, but that sucker
good.
is almost gone.
You're good.
Oh, steady. Wait a minute. Do we take commercial breaks?
We do not take commercial breaks.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're going to get closer to the situation.
This brought to you by a 65-watt Apple charger, available everywhere.
Boy, I tell you what. Hey, hold on. Erica, if you feel so inclined, I would not mind help at the moment. Got it. Okay.
You're good?
I think we're plugged in. We're good to go.
We're good to go.
Yes.
All right.
Sorry, man. We were literally about to.
Oh, you're good. You're good. What I was talking about is I'm interested in this whole blessing from your dad kind of a thing. We've got a lot of dads here that are not, we have dads of all ages and ranges and faith systems and all that kind of stuff. But I'm curious to know, like, what it was about that was so important. I know there's a tradition involved there. I didn't grow up Assemblies of God or in a church that had that as kind of a foundation. Obviously, there's a biblical foundation, in the Old Testament and beyond. For that. But explain to me your feelings behind, kind of missing that originally, what it meant when that man gave it to you, and how we as dads can pass that along to our own sons and daughters, right? Like, I only had daughters. So, like, how do we pass that along logistically and, faithfully and in a way that will benefit them in all of those ways?
So, I remember there being, just like a dedication, right? Like there would be like this, this service where, people, bring their sons and, they would, okay, and we're going to bless this young man, usually around 13, but
it's like, it's a little bit like confirmation, I guess, in the Catholic, Church.
Like exactly. And so, but for me, I never wanted to have like the experience, but just like, who would we say? Jesse blessed David, right? Or, you know what I mean? Like there was it's a tradition that I'm not sure a lot of people observe, but for me, it was a big deal. For one, my mom and dad divorced when I was younger. And then, she got remarried to somebody that, wasn't great. And then when she married Vince, here I am, I'm just a very angry kid, and I felt almost like I was a little forgotten, or I was a burden, or I was a bother, you know what I mean? And whether or not that was true is irrelevant. That's just how I felt, you know what I mean? With a lot of it. But I always thought, and I always see these guys, with their dads, and it's just like, wow, I mean, I have my grandfather, you know what I mean? It's not like I was void of male influence, but it was one of those things where just as there was this cartoon called Superbook that I was allowed to watch when I was a little kid. And it was a cartoon about Bible stories and stuff. And I will never forget it. There was that time where there's a story in the Bible where there was a son it was the Esau and Jacob thing.
Right. Jacob and Esau. Yep.
Jacob and Esau. And it was such a big deal that it was such a big deal that a brother went to great lengths to fool his father to get the blessing from Esau. It was such a big deal.
Oh, you mean steal it from his brother, Esau. Right.
Steal it from his brother.
Yeah.
It was such a big deal. He put on, to the stuff to make it, feel like it was Esau. You know what I mean? Disguised his voice. Took advantage of the fact that his dad had very poor eyesight. And I always thought, wow, that's a really big deal. And then I found out that in the Clark family, that's a big deal too. Like the father will bless the son. And I felt cheated. I felt like, if my mom and dad were getting back together, I felt cheated. Mm-hmm. I felt like, man, they were talking about getting back together. I was going to have my family back and my dad dies.
Right.
All of these things. And I just felt like, man, and then I'm going to lose out on my blessing. And I really never expressed that to anybody, but it really, in my heart, it always hurt. It was an added break. It was like, if the plate is broken in two, man, get the baseball bat. We're going to throw it up and we're going to, you know what I mean? Just shatter it.
Yeah.
And so when Vince did that, I felt that's how I felt like I knew that he would give his heart to the Lord, in our way and actually observe it. I mean, I don't care what you are, but if you're going to give your heart to the Lord, I knew Vince was the type that he would really do it. And he did, when he started getting into it, he didn't quite understand everything, but you don't have to. He was on his quest and he was learning. Mm-hmm. He was brighter. And then, truth be told, him and my mom's relationship was a little rocky, but then all of a sudden, they were getting back together and it was amazing, And so when he gave me that blessing, there was so much that I felt that I missed out on, being a son that couldn't see his father, grasping, and my Uncle Denzel was an amazing father figure for me. Like that man is amazing, was incredible, had an incredible impact on my life. Still not my dad. I would have taken a blessing from him,
right.
But it's more or less saying, I bless you with saying that no matter what, I'm going to be there for you. I'm proud of you. Essentially the blessing is whatever I have is yours.
Right.
Not just material, but whatever I have is yours. You are my son. It's the same thing. You are my daughter. When your daughters, are they married yet?
One of them is married. Yes.
One of them is, right. So it really says something when the potential groom comes to the father to meet you.
Yeah.
Right. That's a big deal. And when, not that they necessarily in this day and age need your consent, but when you give your consent and you say, he's my son now.
Yeah.
You're saying that because he's married your daughter, you've adopted him as a son. So what does that mean? You're going to be there for him you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And for your daughters, to bless your daughters, I don't know. I think men should be able to do that as well with their daughters. Mm-hmm. But to have that sort of have that blessing from a mother and then from both of you, it's something that if I would say if fathers that are listening to this show right now, if they're not doing, I would say start doing it from someone and explain really what that blessing means. It means, and you might already know this. You may already know it, because the other thing about the blessing is it doesn't get it isn't given unless there's pride in the son. You're not going to give it just because they're a son. You know, if he was going to do that, then he would have done it when I was acting a fool, but he didn't.
Right.
He didn't. He would have given it to me when I was at the, you know, the peak of my bank account, but he didn't. He did it when my life and my heart were changed.
Yeah.
And he could see it. That's when he gave me his blessing.
Yeah.
So it's not only something that the father gives his child, it's something that that's the other thing. I became so aimless because who cares? Who cares anyway?
Yeah.
You know, my parents aren't together, and then my dad's dead, and then all of this other stuff started happening. Who cares? And I learned a little late that it matters a great deal.
Yeah.
And so it's also something for the son or the daughter to get the blessing from their mom and dad that says, I'm proud of you. Whatever I have is yours.
Well, it gives that anchor, right? It gives that's part of the anchor. We talked about the compass earlier.
Absolutely.
But you have to have that anchor, that you have that foundation. When my girls were 14, each of them, which is about the time when their heads started spinning around and they wanted to kill everybody, including us, and we slept with one eye open and all that. But I gave,
and you're in Montana.
That's right.
It's like hide the arsenal. Where are we going to do it?
Right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. And so,
like, why did I teach her at 6 years old to use an AK?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But I gave them each, whenever they turned 14, this ring that basically says it has a scripture on the outside of it, but on the inside, it said, I will fight for you.
Oh,
and so
see,
like
that's
that
the
was
other thing. I love that.
That was I wanted them to know that no matter what the situation is, whether it's someone that was trying to hurt them, someone that had hurt them, emotionally, what they needed to go through, whatever, but I was always going to be on their side, and I would be the one in their corner to come out and fight. Right, I would always stand in front.
For a young woman, a girl, getting that reassurance from her father, I would imagine that would be the same as me getting the blessing from my dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's because it's different, right?
Yeah.
I remember, no matter who I was with, I didn't date a whole lot, I didn't, because I had that fear and respect of whomever I was interested in's dad.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I think that was ingrained. I was just raised differently, than a lot of, like, you know what I'm saying? Like you, I mean, it was,
there was a reverence. I think that's the word that our society has lost a lot of in a lot of different venues, but there was this reverence. One of the girl, kind of that main girlfriend I had in high school, her dad was an Army colonel. And you
just don't want a bad day, I mean,
but I mean, he was an amazing man. Like, I really got along with him well. I was always super respectful. Yes, sir. No, sir. But which is how I grew up.
It's like, it might not work out with you.
That's right.
Gosh, I really like your dad.
Yeah. Well, actually, her mom and I stayed friends longer than I dated the girl. So, and the dad and I, the mom has passed away, but the dad and I are friends on Facebook now, and it's been 35 years. It's been 35 years. So,
yeah, man.
And we interact, but yeah, it's that reverence and having that understanding and being able to connect and having all that. But I think it's equally important, in that I will fight with you with girls. So, and there's a generalist traditional statement where I'm going to step in front, but I do the same if I had sons. And with sons,
Absolutely.
I think you also want to communicate that not only will I fight for you, but I will fight with you.
With you.
And I actually think that it's probably the same with daughters too, but it's a little bit of a different mentality when it comes to sons. Like I don't, and I talk about this when it comes to marriage. I always tell couples, you always want to fight back to back. Because if you fight back to back, there's nothing that can sneak up behind you. Right. Like
So big.
You've always got something. You're fighting back to back, not face to face each other. Right. So that's something.
I love that because, we talk about, I mean, man, we're getting real scripture-y today. We talk about like putting on the full armor of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
It says nothing about the back.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing. There's nothing that says, anything about armor in the back. And, I think that's such a big deal, what you just said. If you don't have someone that is fighting back to back with you, what do you have really?
Yeah. Well, that's the military thing, right? Like I've got your six, watch your six. I'm watching your six. And,
right.
that's
what's funny, man? I was saying, I was looking at Instagram and you see all sorts of different, awful things that kind of make you question, like, any day now, it would be great if you could come back. Like, you know what? That'd be great. And
I think even people that don't believe in Jesus are gonna
exactly. They're like, you know what? I'm good.
Fine. I'm ready for it either way.
I'm ready for you. It would be great. Yeah. It would. I mean, I call me Thomas.
Yeah.
I mean, but I was looking at these posts, and it's post after post of, let me put it this way too. I think the idea, the toxic masculinity thing, is such a fallacy. It's such a farce. It's such a lie. We need, who described it like this? Maybe it was Jordan Peterson. I remember he said something like, a man should be a monster.
The beast, knows how to control. He calls it monster or beast but under control, right?
A controlled beast.
Yeah.
That's what you want, right?
Yeah.
That's what you like, I'm a softie, man, but I'm really not a fan of injustice. I'm really not a fan of, and it's that protective instinct that has been tried to quell it. And I've seen so many times where you have these women who are on this, this sort of like, I would say toxic femininity, like toxic, it's like performing, right? It's the performance. Yeah. I'm supposed to be this, I don't want to cuss, but like a bad
bitch. I'm supposed to be a bad bitch.
I'm supposed to be a badass bitch, right? Yeah. And I'm supposed to be this. And so now I'm going to project what I think masculinity means. I'm going to project what I think a man thinks like.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be aggressive like I've been told men are, right? Or maybe they've experienced it. I don't know. Maybe they've experienced a bad guy. I do feel like this. What you put out, you're going to get back. So if you're putting out a lot of negative stuff, you're going to get that back. If you're talking, you're dating and stuff like that, and your idea is that you're in it for a good time, not a long time. You're in it for sexual things or whatever's going to make you happy for the moment. If that's what you're into, because you've been hurt so many times, whatever it is, you're going to keep constantly getting that until you start to remember, I am a child of God. I am a person that is of worth. And so if I look at myself, not in an arrogant way, but I am someone that there was time taken to knit me, even through all of my bad circumstances, I am a person of worth. I am becoming a person of value. I will get those people in my life. But if I don't feel that way, and I'm angry all the time, and I'm this and I'm that, and I'm projecting what I think someone thinks or feels or whatever, you're going to get that back. And I see a lot of these young girls or young women that are trying to do that. And then I at the same time, I'm seeing a lot of because as men, we're walking a tightrope. You know, if I say this, then I'm this, or if I'm saying that, and all it boils down to is control. It boils down to where your ethics. Let's just say not everybody's been, given the opportunity to have someone teach them good ethics, good manners, good all that. Well, you know what? If you're going to find a video on how to change a carburetor, I'm sure there's a video out there on how to have etiquette and how to be respectful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I don't see that. I see men becoming softer, and I see women trying to take on the role of this bombastic, what they think a man is like and how they think. And it's getting so bad to where the pendulum is so far to the wrong side. I feel like it's going to start coming back around.
It is. I think it is coming back around. Yeah, I think it is starting to come back around. There's a whole new movement called tradwife. I don't know if it's pronounced tradwife or tradewife. I think it's trad.
Tradewife?
Well, it's TRAD, which is short for traditional. And so there's some now new influencers on social media who are basically saying, I want to be a traditional wife. And they're, stay-at-home moms and stay-at-home wives and all this stuff. So there appear to be more of that. And honestly, it's this cycle that no one knows who the heck they are supposed to be anyway, what their role is supposed to be. And I think as we continue to be open and honest with each other about that, to say for young women to be able to say, look, I like it when you open the car door for me. And for a guy to say, I like that too. Like it makes me feel like I'm being a servant, loving servant to you, to do that in a great, way. And so for us to have those more defined roles, I think is the way to go.
For every female watching this right now, and for every male watching us right now, I want to make this very clear about the car door thing. Let me tell you what that's about. It's not the fact that you can't do it. It's the fact that we love you so much that we want to make sure that you're honored. When we walk on the outside of on the sidewalk, when we walk on the outside, traditionally, if a woman walked on the outside of a man, that meant she was for sale. When the man walks on the inside, that means she's protected.
Yeah.
Now, if you're with a woman that you don't want to protect and you don't care if she sold it, then that's between you and her.
Right.
But that's what that's about for like everyone watching this.
Yep.
That's what it's about. And just know that a man wants to take care of his woman. A man, beyond the money aspect, we want to be able to take care of her. We want to be able to protect her. And you know what? She's got our six. We want to be with a woman that's going to protect us and honor us.
100%.
Period.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think that's a great place to land the plane. I like to steal that from Mike Rowe. We could talk on for a long time. We'll have to do this again.
Yes, sir.
How do we find out more about what you got going on? Obviously, work. Say it again. Work your career.
Oh man,
work your
career. I'm gonna have to come up with a better name.
Your Career Wednesdays. That's the podcast. My brain. I had a little brain fart there for a second. But how do we find out?
That's okay.
Where to find you? What you got going on? The podcast. Everything else.
You can go to YouTube. YouTube.com/@ Work Your Career Wednesday. We're on every podcast platform. Go on Spotify. Give us a rating there. Go on to Apple Podcasts. I would love it if you could give us a rating, and if you feel that we've earned it, give us a review. Good, bad, or indifferent.
Nice.
They don't all have to be 5s. If there's something you feel that we could improve on, I want to hear about it and I want to know about it. Let's see, where else, man? You know what I could say? You know what, Kevin? Just Google me, okay? just Google. But yeah. We're on all those. I think on X, I'm using my old band's Twitter.
Okay.
So that's at B Clark Band. I think that's what it is. I don't know. Anyway, You look up Bradley Clark Band. I'm sure there's some things there, but yeah, please connect with us. Go to Instagram. Let's see, at Worker Career Wednesday, and love to connect with you there. And yeah,
that's awesome. Well, and I'll remind you to go ahead and do the same thing for us. Rate us and review us here.
Absolutely.
Wherever you listen to this, and go to maxoutman.com. We've got some new challenges coming out. We've got a new community that we're working through to be able to connect with other men and do some of those things. Some, marriage, man, mission, purpose, all of those things.
Can I say something real quick?
Go ahead, do it.
Your courses and the case study you guys are doing now. Oh my gosh. Every man watching this, do not walk, run to Maxed Out Man course. It is incredible.
Thanks.
And I've been, because I'm on the Facebook group.
Yeah. Yep.
And I've been seeing the different comments and the videos and stuff of these men. I see the growth. I mean,
these guys are killing it. I mean, it's been really fun to see, it's fun to be the observer. And, the nice thing about doing coaching is, we kind of push it a little bit, push these guys and hold them accountable. And, even for me, like, I'm a big fitness guy, right? But I need a coach because so I have accountability. I have that guidance. I have some help with programming. And so that's kind of where we're at, but I appreciate that for sure. But hey, dude, I appreciate you coming on board, and we hope to see you again soon here.
Oh, I anytime, any day, any place. I appreciate you so much, Kevin, really.
All right, take care.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
If you're looking to really maximize your life and become the man you were made to be, head over to maxedoutman.com and get your journey started today.